So we're now going to move into the next session entitled Performance Rights, Speculative Practices and Knowledge Production in the Arts. As I mentioned, we've been funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council. So arts and cultural methodologies and media have been really critical to our work in understanding and representing notions of disability and how that can influence publics and other groups and communities and stakeholders. I'm just going to introduce you to the chair of this panel before handing over to him. Please welcome Professor Anthony Downey from Birmingham City University, who is also a co-investigator on the Disability Under Siege project. Anthony's a professor of visual culture in the Middle East and North Africa, and he's based at the Birmingham School of Art. He's affiliated with several research projects that explore the politics of global contemporary arts practices, digital media, and image production, looking at the relationships between knowledge production and visual culture, and how cultural practices relate to migration and human rights across the global south. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you, Dina. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'd like to begin by thanking all our participants in this panel, and I will very briefly introduce them. We have Hussam Ghosheh, the founder and artistic leader of Basta Theatre Collective, and I think Hussam is currently in Jerusalem. Welcome, Hussam. It's great to see you, my friend. We have Hamad Samambra, who is the main performer in 63 Days of Sit-In and an original member of the Movement for a Decent Life for Persons with Disabilities. Welcome, Hamad. And I think Hamad might be in Ramallah, if I am correct, Hamad. And we also have Sabine Abusaada, who is a curator. Thank you, Hamad. My apologies. I might be speaking a little quickly. And actually, a quick note to the interpreter. I'm Irish, and we're always accused of speaking too quickly. If I do start speaking too quickly, just send me a note and slow me down, please. We're also joined by Sabine Abusaada, curator and researcher for the 63 Days Sit-In project. Welcome, folks, and thank you again for being here this morning. I'm going to talk very, very briefly and just give some context to what we are going to engage with today. We're going to see a video, a film, which is around 35 minutes long. And that film covers the inception of the theater piece, 63 Days of Sit-In. And the actual original origins for this theater piece was started in November of 2020, and that surrounded protests that happened in Ramallah outside of the Palestinian Legislative Council. And those protests were led by the organization, the Movement for a Decent Life for Persons with Disabilities. My understanding is that Hussam, as part of the Basta Theatre Collective, joined those protests in solidarity, in support of their objectives, and began filming, began having conversations, began having workshops with participants in the protest, including Hamad Samambra. That led to the Basta Insurance theatrical intervention, and we will see some of this today, which starred, if that's the right word, Hamad as the main protagonist. And that led subsequently to the theater performance, which is a much more extended performance, 63 Days of Sit-In. So that's the general background, and it's very complex. And I must admit, despite the fact that I've been involved in this myself for the best part of 4 years, piecing together the timeline is important, because what we see evolve here is, to my mind, an equitable form of collaborative knowledge production generated with people with disabilities in an equitable manner. And this is an extraordinary event in and of itself. when I was thinking about that, and Hussam and I have been having many, many conversations, but I did go back and look at the original objectives of the Disability Under Siege project, and specifically the objectives of why involve culture in this project. And there were three key questions that arose back in 2020, and I just want to remind everyone, and myself indeed, of what those questions were. How can culture, as a practice, expand the educational provision for people with disabilities? Key question. Second, how can cultural practices engage with disability and expand public knowledge of the issues involved? Now, again, I think this is a key question that's explored at length throughout 63 days of sit-in. But then there's a very important question that underwrites both of those questions, and that's the third question. How can cultural practices engage with the agency of people with disabilities and generate equitable forms of co-produced knowledge? Now, this is absolutely critical, and I do not want to understate that question. That is a very complex question, a very difficult question. And I was reminded of the fantastic work that my colleague Rita Giacomin is doing around decolonizing knowledge. And I think her essay is up on our website. I would recommend that everybody reads that, a very important intervention into these discussions. And I just want to mention just a number of other things before we pass over to Hussam and look at the film. I want to suggest, as I did in 2020, that artistic practice offers a participatory model. It offers a model of engagement that's very important when we look at activism, specifically protest movements, because art can re-articulate certain questions. It can take it out of the political sphere and move it into another sphere of engagement. Now, sometimes that has to do with satire, and I think Hamad and Hussam and Sabine have made, to a certain extent, a satirical intervention, but it's more than that too. But it's quite interesting the way in which they utilize theatre as a means to speak to power. I would also point out that this participatory element is very key to the Disability Under Siege project overall. And I was very taken by Susan Metwali's talk yesterday around participatory action research, because this brings into place something else. What forms of knowledge are being produced through culture? How do we understand those forms of knowledge? They're not quantitative, they're not qualitative, they're speculative. And that speculative knowledge, that exploration of what we do not know, is very important to new knowledge production. So it's not about restating what we already know. It's trying to have a debate and a discussion about what we do not know. And art as a forum for doing that, I think, is very important. I will also point out that art as a means to produce knowledge, and again, I would defer back to Rita Giacomin and the wonderful talk by Rula Handor yesterday, is also a means to engage new levels of debate. It's a way to reach into areas that potentially politics simply doesn't reach into. Because it asks a very simple question. Who gets to speak for whom and why? And I think that's the critical question. Who gets to speak for whom and why? And this would bring us back to the talk that Ma has just given around agency. Whose agency is being expressed through these projects? Whose agency is expressed through art as a practice? And I think this is explored throughout 63 days of sit-in. I would also point out that the notion of art and advocacy is very important here. And I would defer back to Itab's talk yesterday and Ibrahim Abdullah. Culture as resilience is very important. And Nazmi Al-Mazri and his colleagues yesterday expressed this notion of resilience. And again, I would ask the audience to consider the way in which 63 days of sit-in draws upon the great tradition of Palestinian community theatre and culture as resilience. Culture is also a form of fostering inclusion. Again, I would defer back to Itab's talk yesterday about inclusive practices being designed into projects from the outset rather than being added on at the end. And again, when we look at the film and hear Hussam, Hamad, and Sabine speak, I think this is very important. Inclusion was key from the outset of the project, not backfilled onto the project or added on after the event, crucial from the beginning. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to pass over to Hussam, And again, I think one of the key questions here is around agency, intervention, activism, movement. But it all comes down to one question for me: who gets to speak for whom and why? And again, building that into the practice, artistic and cultural practices from the outset, is absolutely key. So, Hussam, you're going to speak a little bit more about the video that we're going to see, and then we're going to watch the video, and then hopefully, and we will have time for questions, because I have questions for Hamad, I have questions for Sabine, and we will return to questions at the end. But Hussam, my friend, I will pass over to you now.
Hi, Anthony and Sarah, everyone. Thanks to Hamad and Sabine and all of our extended community, everyone who took part in the creation of this work since 2020. I think you covered almost everything, Anthony, and I know I just want to draw your attention that the video is a little bit longer than expected, and that we will be seeing it as a premiere, even like Sabine didn't see it yet fully, and Hamad. So it was just ready at 4 o'clock in the morning. There will be very minor mistakes. We will be working on it very soon when we will publish it online. And yeah, maybe I just want to mention that when we as Basta Theatre, we are a community street theatre collective based in Palestine. We don't have a place, so every place is for us. We work in Palestine and in abroad. We face fragmentation by mobility. We face bureaucracy by simplicity. Since we started 10 years, we are also so glad that we're standing here together with the journey of 63 days of sit-in. We believe in our commitment to this case and to work to advocate for the rights, for our rights, and for the rights of people with disability. So yeah, I don't want to talk more now. We'll see in details in the video, in the documentary about the whole journey. But maybe just to clarify that when we joined the Legislative Council, the sit-in, we were there as a collective, so not me by myself. And it's always the energy which moves us is the collective energy. So yeah, and usually we film our interventions or our meetings to refer to it to in a way to save it for the future to see. So without this chance, without also we are very lucky just to say to have you also, Anthony, your eye from time to time and your support. It's also um, shaping our practice and inspire us a lot. So I leave you with the documentary, and I hope you all to enjoy it and be speak about it.
Thank you, Hussam.
Hey, I want to go to the toilets. Open the door. I say open the gate. We won't go inside. Hit. The system. On December 3, 2020, the Movement for a Decent Life for Persons with Disabilities in Palestine launched a sit-in inside the Palestinian Legislative Council in Ramallah with a single demand: comprehensive and fair health insurance for persons with disabilities. The sit-in exposed the lack of political will to enforce all the rights stipulated in the Persons with Disability Law of 1999. Good evening. We are a group, a movement for a decent life for people with disabilities. We are here inside the Palestinian Legislative Council. We like to clarify some things for everyone. I hope our voice is clear as this Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020 at 9 o'clock in the morning. Mu'taz, sit down and don't get up. Let the whole world rise instead. We are not institutions. We are not institutional speeches. A bus with 55 passengers and a minibus with 7 passengers moved from the gate of the South Al-Dahriye. They arrived to the premises of the Legislative Council, which led to the confusion of the security of the council. You know me. In all respect, open the gate. Let's sit and talk. You are an official. You have to discuss with us. You need to talk with us. Open the gates to the people. They are your countrymen, Wa'el al-Sheikh. These are your countrymen and countrywomen. Everyone wants to enter. Everyone wants to get in. Come on, get in. Despite the existing of a law which guarantees the rights of persons with disability, its practical implementation, represented by the government health insurance system enacted in 2004, did not include persons with disabilities. The health insurance system provides only services with those with a disability rate exceeds 30%, contrary to the persons with disability law that states that all services should be free, disregarding the percentage of disability. We held the coffin. We were 5. We were blind. The first team in the front is scouting the way. A group passed us and asked us, "Where are you going?" They said. We thought that they are interested. We told them that we are going there. But they were policemen and they closed the gate, but we were faster and closed the street. No minister's car will get out. No minister's car will get out. Listen to me. First, we are people. We do not have a political agenda. We do not have an institutional agenda, a racial agenda. We are humans. We are speaking about a humanitarian issue. You are an official. Your uncle is an official. Since the beginning of the movement of today, there are people who are dying because of ulcers. Mahmoud Abu Jaber is the latest victim. We have submitted the amendment document. The amendment document, if it is submitted the same way as you have modified it, it will be rejected. Very simply, the amendments on the system that we proposed, Dr. Ali told us that they are amendments not to content, but to, let's say, the drafting. We reviewed the amendments of the ministry. These amendments are not legal. Second, they take us back to zero, to square one. I will give you an example. When I talk about the service basket, for example, medical and assistive devices and rehabilitation services that will be enacted by the medical committee. We have many questions about those in the medical committee who should diagnose and not provide a treatment plan and not decide on a surgical procedure. This is their mandate. Dear audience, ladies and gentlemen, respectfully acknowledging all titles and positions, welcome to the conference of epiphanies of post-disability, disability. For 10 years, it has shed light on disability. Today's session, we will interpret together 10 years of work and come up with an updated recommendation paper, which we will take and pressure, and advocate it. I was one of the participants in the movement, and I would have liked at the time to be someone defending human rights issues in general and someone advocating the rights of people with disabilities to whom I belong. I started engaging in different ways, in different forms, engaging in different forms of struggle, leading up to the sit-in at the Legislative Council with my colleagues and friends. Minister Kayala, Minister of Health, where are you? So busy not caring for us. Minister Kayala, Minister of Health, where are you? Are you so busy so as not to care for us? The system, we want the system. The system, we want the system, we want the system. You are an official with responsibility. We respect you. We respect that you are here with us and speaking to us. But as I am telling you and reaffirming, we have received promises, but in reality, nothing was translated in reality. This is why we are here today to discuss this matter. If I may, you, all the brothers and sisters with special needs, with disabilities, I am telling you, and I'm responsible for what I say. The government is more concerned about your interests and needs more than you. Good morning. Welcome, everyone. For us, you are a very important segment of Palestinian society. We consider you as our charge and responsibility because we know there are different reasons behind your disability. We believe that this segment of Palestinian society must be cared for with all the resources we have. Now, I am heading to the Prime Minister's office to discuss the issue of health insurance that you are demanding. We are here to represent you. There's no problem. I don't see there is a problem at all. Allow me to continue. She's saying that she has a meeting regarding persons with disabilities, the elderly, and other social groups. Hence, our issue is one of the matters that will be discussed today. To us, as protesters at the Legislative Council, we will remain in the sit-in, and the sit-in will remain open because there is ambiguity, lack of clarity, and no timeline. The minister came down not to meet us because the only way for her to pass through is the road that we were blocking. And then the usually sympathy address began. You are our sons and daughters. We love you. We respect you. You are an important segment of this country. I am heading now to the Prime Minister's office to discuss and advocate on your behalf. The 63-day sit-in performance is the culmination of the Basta Theatre artistic practice and live experience. Since we joined the movement for a decent life for people with disabilities at the Legislative Council. The very first moment we entered the council, I felt that it is a historic moment because to us, it was a historic moment to us as a theater. That's a calculator. Be careful. Unity of purpose, unity of struggle, unity of path. One day peace will return to it. Whether they like it or not. From the land of Isra and Mi'raj. Being part in general, or actually my personal participation in the performance that took place in the council, it was a strange feeling because it was my first acting experience and I had nothing to do with it. I've never studied or took any training in acting. But with the help of friends, we were able to produce something, to create something and something good that people liked and delivered the intended message. Our entire message was about health insurance. When he holds the insurance, she looks at him and says, you need to go pay. You take the paper. I can't hold anything, he's saying, but she can in an artistic way give him the paper. After the scene of the diagnosis of the medical committee, then we have the pharmacy, then comes Hamad's speech at Abu Rishi, because Hamad will deliver a satirical speech like the government speech. He will be wearing a tie with feathers on it and dressed in a costume. We had no previous experience in working with people with disabilities or artistic tools that rely on simplicity in production, speed in execution, on using available resources. Despite that, we managed to present insurance Basta performance at the Legislative Council, which where the character of Abu Risha, one of the characters that were created in the Basta theater journey, which builds on the Palestinian theatrical heritage, political community theater heritage that began in the beginnings of the 20th century. Run, Abu Hamad, run. We see the character of Abu Risha, a very simple character that reflects the corrupt politician and comments on political events and mimics official rhetoric and represents the highest form of political satire. And it is a historic moment for this character, which created memories with the people in the streets in various locations inside and outside Palestine. In our country, we stand on par with nations, a lesson, as they call it, a model. We are a model in strict measures in handling the rights of our brothers and our sons who live with disabilities. I always loved dark comedy, but I've never expected to take part in it. So when I sit in front of the people dressed like Abu Rishi, I felt strange. I felt that I'm happy that I am here and I'm able to play this role or character. At the same time, I'm displeased with what I am saying to the audience. But I had to speak seriously, and it was very strange to me. I had mixed feelings. It was very hard to describe this feeling, honestly, how to describe Abu Rishi. Abu Rishi is one of the characters that will remain stuck in my memory. This week will witness an escalation. Next week we will escalate as well, and the week after there will be escalation. No week will be like the other, and no week should be like the other. We should not accept that each week be the same. It is an opportunity in order to sit together, but it is something that will not end in a fortnight. Good evening. My name is Hussam Ghosheh from Basta Theatre. We're very proud to be part of the movement for a decent life for people with disabilities. We salute you and we salute your efforts and all those who said solidarity with the movement. And we call on institutions, individuals, and cooperatives, and everyone who can support the movement in any way to stand with the with the movement. We are entering day 35 of a continuous sitting inside the City Council.
In the 63 days of sit-in performance, maybe, perhaps, someone talks to me tomorrow. Let's see what will happen. Right now, we'll see what will happen. Everyone who hears me, not just in the Ramallah area, we belong to Palestine. We complete each other. Those who couldn't come here from their places, I tell you, go and film the government hospitals and see what is missing there. Send us the footage to our page, Movement for a Decent Life for people with Disabilities. After 2 o'clock started the countdown to come out. The most important step was to reinforce our positions, and pressure started by the Secretary General of the Council, and we had been facing additional warnings, growing altercations with the security, and we were faced with two choices. Either you talk to the police to free us, or you talk to the main official. I'm here to convey a message to protect people's rights and to continue my struggle in order to make sure people live in dignity. Things got intertwined, and there was an open opportunity at the Basra Theatre in order to convey a new kind of message. It is 5 o'clock. The Secretary of the Council worker returned, and he started accusing us again of having shady connections and covert agendas, so many questions. People began to gather, and all friends arrived at the door of the council. Someone called the civil defense in order to come and break the main gate, the gate of the Legislative Council. When the security officer arrived and he understood what was happening, he turned around and left. And then it was 11 p.m. and we were all saluting our colleagues on the inside from behind the windows, and then people left, but the police and the cold remained. We were able to support the movement with different tools by producing visual materials through networking support, but we felt and we were quite sure that this is going to be an opening to our joint action to advocate for people with disabilities and their rights. In my name and on behalf of all members of the cooperative, we are committed to this case. We are here to put a cornerstone and to engage in a short discussion to see how we shall move forward. All the ideas that we're proposing, we have to reconsider them briefly to see what were the main ideas and how can we come out with clear recommendations. Imagine someone looking into this ideas, they should understand the gist of the topic. All these developments brought me back to what happened at the Legislative Council and the 63 days we spent there and how difficult they were. The collaborative work that was done by all members of the movement, the colleagues who were there, the assistants, the advocates on a daily basis at the council and who attended these research sessions were important. Some things that do not ride with me as a human being, I need to make peace with that for a bigger purpose. And things have to work, even if difficulty. I wanted at least to see a doctor. It was the first time to have this situation. When you say we did a sit-in with the help of all advocates, and the sit-in succeeded, and the desired goal was achieved, later on, this sit-in was documented so that people would learn from it and would understand how rights-based movements can materialize. On the day of the meeting with the Prime Minister, everyone was present in Ramallah on November 26. A lot of people arrived from Dahriya, Hebron, North, and the center. And these were supporters, advocates. Yes, they came with music and other tools. They flooded the streets, and it was something unimaginable. I remember that at the time, We told them that we have on that day the meeting with the Prime Minister. I'm showing him how people were on the street. We're trying to learn and contribute to develop tools in order to better integrate people with disability through arts. And when I say integration, I don't mean to simply employ or use these people, but to make them manage that work. As we see after the 60-day long sit-in, one single actor is telling his true story. The first night was the most difficult because there was basically nothing. No shoes, no covers, no mattresses. So basically, we had to sleep anywhere possible. Personally, I was sleeping on the ground, and the ladies were sleeping on chairs, and other guys were sleeping on their wheelchairs. The first night, basically, we didn't sleep. We thought that we had just gone through the hardest night at the General Assembly until the disaster arrived the next morning. The security officers came and decided to open up the doors of the Legislative Council. Tomorrow, people will know you, will know how much of a liars you are. We were exhausted and we were barely able to sleep for a few minutes. It was so tiring. On the third day only, we got new mattresses. And what happened on the two first nights? Where did you sleep? How did you sleep? Well, on the floor. And the first night was quite difficult. It was basically to break us. It was simply a way to challenge us. Either you continue or you will break down. So there's this whole idea is an idea of pain, of fatigue, even of disgust of the reality. We also started contemplating our own reasons. Why are we here? Frankly, I'm someone who believes in collaborative work in any kind of field. The environment provided by the Basta Theatre is great. It's an inclusive place for everyone, no matter who these people are. And it could be seen as a new model as well, where a group of people with someone disabled is basically providing all types of actions, and that person is basically doing anything the others are doing. The council door was shut down, and electricity was cut off. At 4 o'clock, we were in total blackout, and the gates, outside gates were sealed. We learned a lot from it, that experience. Personally, I learned a lot from it, and we're still in a continuous journey of learning to see how we can better adapt our show to people with disability. They are facing their fate alone inside their homes. Of course, you are questioning why the Legislative Council specifically, while our demands were perhaps better addressed to the Ministry of Health. But it's about the symbolism of the place, the People's Assembly, the house of all Palestinians, supposedly. It's true that it's not active, but it's symbolic, and we are a people that lives off on symbolism. The spirit of the team is great. It makes it like a family, basically. And as a result, I shed off all restrictions, anything that will prevent me to speak openly in front of people and to show my true self. Someone moving from one home to another, speaking openly, comfortably, in total transparency about any kind of topic, even those topics that would upset you, things that we'd like to improve. Today, we're approaching the 10-year anniversary of the Basta Theatre. We started from the street with people from all straits of life, but through this new tool, the Basta Theatre, we're able to explore traditional arts of storytelling, of producing social and political plays that used to be played in Palestine for the past 100 years. So we operated this theater, and the main idea was to be close to people and to bring arts closer to people by basically commenting current affairs, by talking about movements, strikes, other crises and issues. Hamad is experiencing his first takeoff. The people demand the downfall of the regime. The people demand the downfall of the regime. We did a tour abroad, which allowed us to greatly develop our play. For example, at one of the meetings, some people with disability wanted to attend the show. We brought them in before we let everyone in, and we explained in detail what the main actor is wearing, what it represents, what does it symbolize, and we explained any kind of twist or action in the play that they wouldn't necessarily understand, and that would also have an important impact on the story line of the play. It's a very important show, and it expresses something very important. After a 63-day long sit-in, it provides great documentation of the different phases that went through in that sit-in, its tactics, its difficulties, and it provides a critical explanation of the sit-in. I think it's perhaps excellent in that sense, perhaps the best in the region or in the world. Day 63. The day when the new rules were supposed to be ratified and enacted. The time was barely moving until it was 12. The exact moment when the new rules or regulations were supposed to be ratified and enacted, and we were expecting that news to break out at any moment. And then it was out. But unfortunately, it was all in vain, and nothing was said about disability. We started thinking amongst ourselves about what steps should we take later, until he called and told us, your regulations were approved in the formulation that you've presented. But then we actually faced greater fear because we were afraid that they would enact regulations that they like not based on people's needs. And this is why we have sent out a call for a press conference to be held the next day. Ladies and gentlemen, what I would like to say today is that Sarah Youssef and Essam Qasim are the representatives of the Prime Minister. They read to us all the articles that have been contentious and that were amended by the Ministry of Health and that we didn't agree on. And they read them exactly as we approved them. And they assured to us that they will be signed by the Prime Minister after 4:30 and will be also issued in the official Gazette tomorrow. I would like to remind everyone that this effort is not restricted to Ramallah, to Bethlehem or Jenin. It's an effort that covers all of Palestine, including the Gaza Strip, and people there were continuously in contact with us. It's the fruit of a common action, a collective action, and this is why we sincerely thank you all. And perhaps we cannot do it justice with words. A great thank you from our heart to all of you. Empty darkness, and the sun drowns in the sea of clouds. A wave of darkness, darkness reaching hearts and eyes. If the sun sets in the sea of clouds, and a wave of darkness arises, and the path disappears in lines and circles, O wanderer, O roamer, O man of understanding, you have no guide. The words are like a sword, cutting wherever they pass, but praise is easy and comfortable. It deceives, yet it harms, and the word is a debt without hands, but loyalty belongs to the free. The word is a debt we carry without hands, but loyalty belongs to the free. To the free. Thank you all.
Thank you, Hussam. I was wondering if I could bring in Hamad. Hamad,
Yes.
my friend. Thank you. Hamad, I'd like to start with you. Just a few questions. Obviously, you were very happily or unhappily protesting in November of 2020. Along comes Hussam, film crew, and starts a conversation with you about protest. And I just wanted to ask you, because you're not a trained actor, and now you're acting all over the world. How did that feel? What was your initial reaction? And how do you think about the project more broadly, Hamad? Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Regarding my experience with acting, as someone, as you've said, who hasn't studied acting throughout my life, and as I've mentioned in one of the videos that were previously displayed, I really wanted to experience dark comedy. And this is perhaps due to my living experiences and the situation of Palestine in general, not only the situation of people with disability, we all face a lot of problems. And I felt that we need to shed light on that in all possible ways and forms. So basically, I'm among those people who always thrive to learn more, and I'm always open to any kind of new learning in any possible way in order to better communicate the message that I want to convey to people, which is basically to defend human rights in general terms and to defend the rights of people with disability in particular. So, artistic action has proven its efficiency in my situation after the show 63 days of sit-in. I was able to convey my message to the people, so in that sense it was quite efficient, and especially that I was able to present this show in a number of countries, specifically outside the Arab world, and perhaps in places that didn't have a lot of knowledge about the situation of people with disabilities, specifically in Palestine, a country that has been under occupation for the past 80 years. And what I've sensed personally, what I've felt after each show is that the message was properly conveyed and people were very much touched by that show, and it has proven its efficiency in that sense. So, in general terms, I can say that I felt also quite lucky because through this project, I was able to better incarnate our demands-based movement since 2000, a movement for a better life with dignity for people with disability that went on for 63 nights and days of sit-in, asking for a better health coverage for people with disability. And the sit-in succeeded in the sense that it led to the enactment of the regulations that were put forth by our movement at the time. And I felt that this experience and its success needed to be documented in any potential way. So the fact that this experience allowed us to document all that has happened made us reflect more on what was going on the whole demands based approach and on the outcomes, to analyze these outcomes and the pillars that the whole movement was based on, and to try and convey that and to disseminate this experience everywhere so that others would learn from it. Because we showed everyone that even a small demands-based movement can actually achieve success.
Thank you, Hamad. Hamad, obviously, with the video, you can see that you also had a lot of fun. And I was just wondering about what you learned from the process, because I know from Hussam and Sabine that they learned a lot about their practice through the protest movement. But I'm just wondering what you learned specifically. Was there any one thing?
Personally, regarding my experience throughout the 63 days, I was able to learn a lot since day one until we left. It was a continuous learning process. It was a learning curve, basically. But personally, I can perhaps highlight the following. Any kind of rights-based action in the world would not succeed unless It also has clear red lines not to be crossed, and it also needs a great deal of patience. Perhaps patience is the key word here, and this is something that I was able to learn much about in my experience and how effective patience is.
Thank you, Hamad. Wise words, my friend, wise words. Sabine, if I may, now I know you've been involved in this on a research level and working with the artists and so forth. Could you talk a little bit about your experience? Because I understand from conversations with Hussam, Basta Theatre Collective had to rethink its own approach through the disability movement, which is really fascinating for me. And Hussam has talked very eloquently about this elsewhere. But could you talk about your experience, what you learned from that experience?
Yes, thank you, Anthony, and thank you everyone for being here. Yes, I think the whole process was a very new process also for me on a personal level, because on another note, I come from a psychological background where I also learn research methodologies and traditional ways of doing research. So being involved in an artistic space was never meant for me to be like a research experience. It was meant to be something on the side that I do and be active in, but it actually was, and it made me also think of research on a broader level, and a more, if I may say, maybe liberating way of doing research. Basically, the whole process of document, as Hussam said before, we were also involved in the movement itself, which makes things also different. It wasn't that we came 2 years later and we just came to document it. No, we were involved in the process from the beginning. And this gives also an insight from the inside. But if we want to talk about the 2 years after work, which is the documentation, and I don't know if we can call it mere documentation as well, because it was also a very critical examination of the whole process, the whole movement, the sit-in itself. So it was also a space for the activists themselves to reflect on their experience and criticize it, and not only document it. Which we see also in the performance, from the commentaries, from the sarcasm, from all of the different elements. The process was, to simplify, it was mainly in 2 sections. So the first was more a semi-structured focus group sessions. And in those, we aimed to meet with the 5 main activists of the movement. And we had some questions, we had some points to discuss, but it was mainly them leading the discussion and remembering what they want to share and tell us. And as I said, also criticizing and critically commenting on it. And this was a very long process. Maybe in total it was 5 meetings, but each were 4 or 5 hours meetings. And then the second part was also the interesting part, in which we had to condense all of this experience into a 50 minutes performance in collaboration with a multidisciplinary team. So we had people from artistic backgrounds, directors, mainly theater directors, but also Hamad was mainly involved in the process from the beginning, so the script writing till the performance, as well as technicians, students. So it was basically a whole reflection on each of our roles in this process. And I think the third level that made us reflect a lot on our work was actually inclusion, and having performances that are, inclusive and all people can attend to, because we can't also reflect on such experience without making the performance itself adapted for everyone. So on an artistic level, this was also important.
Sabine, thank you. So much to unpack there, and I'm sorry we haven't got more time, but the way in which you articulate the multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary level, the way in which this adds to your own research practice and develops your research methodologies, absolutely pivotal. Equitable forms of knowledge, production, again, crucial. Hussam, there's a scene at the very start of this film, and I'm so glad you kept it in because I think it encapsulates both the problem and potentially the solution. The lady who's sitting in the wheelchair very forcefully says, "We are not here to be filmed or watched." Now, that's an extraordinary statement that she makes because what she's saying there is, we are not the object of information. We need to be the subject of communication. Now, you kept that in this film, and I think that's important because it shows the challenges. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more on that and perhaps reflect upon what Sabine just said about how this was a process of reflection for Basta Theatre Collective as much as it was a show of solidarity for the protest movement.
Yes, exactly. Actually, we have also this in the first scene in the theater piece. When in sarcastic way, Hamad is opening a conference and making jokes around the long-term impact and all other words that has been used. Yeah, for us again, actually, I'm losing my words, but yeah, it's a turning point for us. Now, Basta is inclusive. Officially, we can say Basta is inclusive with Hamad on board. Hamad is leading this part in our work. And yeah, we're very thankful for the movement of people with disability, that for the knowledge that they shared with us, for teaching us. Like as I mentioned, we have joined many movements and strikes. We worked with former prisoners, etc. Yani too many, if we are all marginalized, but we too many a lot of movements, but with the movement of people with disability, we learn deeply in practice what does it mean collective work, what is collectivity means. And yeah, also to mention, like it took us to do this verbatim theater, to do this documentary, like word by word. Sarcasm is there, the reality is there. Yeah, it's when you just see what's happening, and as you see in the performance, this is the official speech, how the Minister of Health is speaking. Like if you just take this 1 minute, it will show the whole situation, how terrifying is it. So yeah, we learned a lot, and as we also work, we're trying, maybe, sorry for the maybe also we are I need to mention that theater is not our profession, so we don't live from making theater. We hope so, but we are free. We do it on our own, to not to be, in the market of art, etc., and questioning everything. So we are trying to create our whole organic system, our economical system. We're connected to land. We extended our community, and the latest, like with the 63 days of sit-in. Again, I believe this is a very important performance, and we touched that. We were performing in the summer on our own with our partners. We went to international tour, and it was very, very, very relevant for all the audience who are like advocating and standing and doing sit-ins for Palestine, to hear a live experience from Palestinian sit-in. And I think I will take this opportunity for everyone with us in the panel, that we need to keep moving and to mobilize towards this case, especially after the genocide in the region, and that's to tell the whole world that we can change, and we can simplicity, like also people with disability, they need to lead the change. especially in this in regarding the health insurance and inclusive and all of the topics. And this is a life experience, and we will be really happy. We will be really looking forward to bring the performance to other venues, to speak, to mobilize. By the way, also Hamad, he's a chief of an organization advocating for people with disability in South Hebron. In South Hebron in Palestine, and he's also doing this voluntary. So our work didn't stop here. We contributed in making Khalil Sakakini Cultural Center accessible for people with disability. We are also working in advocacy for public transportation in Palestine, to have private taxis for people with disability. To do this, we need to extend our community and people who can join and support us and mobilize human and resources to do that. For that, we need to be present in different occasions. And the documentary film is also a great thing to show. But when we will publish it, we'll publish just part of it, like 15 minutes or something like this. But yeah, I hope that we're still together, and looking forward to keep doing this.
Hussam, thank you, my friend. I'm sorry we don't have more time. I'm going to have to end there. Hussam Ghosheh, founder and artistic leader of Basta Theatre Collective. Hamad Samamra, Sabine Abusaada, thank you so much. It's been a privilege working with you all. And just to end on that note that Hussam brought up, this is a midpoint. Hussam's already brought this with Hamad to Madrid and Berlin. There will be a performance in Ramallah at the Al Katan Foundation later this month. Hussam and I are working to get this to the UK as well at some point, potentially London and Berlin. So this is a midpoint toward developing this project long term. Thank you so much, folks. Thank you. I'm going to pass over to Dina. Dina, my apologies. We've run over. My apologies.
Not at all. Thank you so much. This has just been fantastic, a real highlight of the conference. So thank you all to your amazing efforts and the film and the performance. We can't I can't sort of express enough how amazing it is.